Alone at dinner, she discovered an amazing connection when a stranger whispered, "Be my boyfriend." The diner hummed with the usual chatter, the clinking of cups, and the sizzle of bacon on the grill. Sarah moved between tables, balancing plates of greasy fries and milkshakes, her tired feet aching with each step. At 32, after a brutal divorce, she was no stranger to exhaustion. 2 jobs and a spirited 8-year-old daughter, Lily, added to the weight she carried, but tonight felt heavier somehow. The small town buzzed around her, yet she felt isolated, like a ghost haunting her own life. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was just another slow evening, and as she poured coffee for a lonely couple tucked away in a booth, a deep voice suddenly broke through her fog. "Be my boyfriend." A rugged stranger called from a nearby table. His laughter echoed like a song in her chest, bringing warmth to the cold air. Caught off guard, Sarah hesitated, a smile creeping onto her tired face. "Excuse me?" she replied, half laughing but slightly stunned. Tom, the stranger, leaned closer, his eyes dancing with mischief and charm. They began talking, and with each exchange, laughter permeated her loneliness, stitching up the fragments of her heart. His stories of military service flowed out like a rush of fresh air. The battles he'd fought abroad mirrored the struggle she faced daily, managing bills, raising Lily, staying afloat. In that cramped diner, over plates of pancakes and coffee, they discovered a common thread of resilience woven through their lives. She felt alive again, even amidst the clattering dishes and mundane conversations about high school football. Just as the warmth of their connection filled the void in her heart, a text flashed across her phone. It was her mother, concerned about her spending time with a stranger. The disapproval stung like a slap. Why should she care about societal judgments? But the weight of expectations dragged her down like a lead anchor, and as she shifted her gaze back to Tom, the lightness began to sputter. Then the news hit her harder than a slap in the face. The diner might close due to unpaid bills. She felt her heart sink deeper still, like a rock plummeting to the ocean floor. What was the American dream, if not within her reach? In an unexpected twist, Tom reached into his wallet, pulling out a handful of cash. "Here," he said gently, "take this for rent. You're doing a lot, and you shouldn't have to do it all alone." The gesture pierced her like an arrow, igniting a mix of gratitude and frustration. Was it charity or genuine kindness? The idea felt foreign and uncomfortable, especially with her belief in self-sufficiency ringing loudly in her ears. Before she could respond, he asked with sparkling eyes, "What do you really want, Sarah?" That simple question detonated emotions she'd buried deep. Hope, fear, vulnerability. The wall she had built around her heart felt both suffocating and necessary. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she took a deep breath, staring into Tom's sincere gaze, the diner pulsed with life, and she felt the winds of change brush against her skin. Could she allow this moment, the laughter, the kindness, to break the barriers she had so meticulously built around her heart? The possibilities swirled before her like smoke on a warm summer evening. The deeper question loomed over her like a shadow. Would she take the leap and let him in, or retreat back into isolation where she felt so painfully safe? Sarah's heart raced as she studied Tom's face, his earnestness radiating a warmth that felt new and exciting. Could she trust him? She could almost hear the quiet whispers of her past failures echoing in her mind. But tonight, amid the familiar din of the diner, there was a spark igniting something deep within her that had long been dormant. "What do I want?" she murmured, her fingers absently tracing the edge of the coffee cup. The question hung in the air, heavy yet inviting. Perhaps it had been too long since she had dared to ask herself that very thing. I want to be happy," she finally answered, a small burst of courage propelling her words. Tom leaned back slightly, allowing her the space to breathe. "Then let us explore that together," he suggested with a smile that reached his eyes. His confidence wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. Suddenly, the diner door swung open, ringing a bell that cut through the moment. A rush of customers flowed in, breaking the connection as laughter and chatter filled the space. Sarah could hear her boss, Jenny, calling out orders while trying to appease a rowdy group of teenagers. The ambience shifted back to the familiar chaos, yet her mind clung to the magic of Tom's presence. "Hey, I should probably get back to work," she said reluctantly, feeling a tug at both her heart and sense of duty. "I'll be right here," he assured her, his voice warm like the coffee she poured. As she darted from table to table, her heart swirled with confusion and excitement. She worked quickly, but her mind danced back to Tom's laughter, the sound of it so different from the hollow echoes of her past. An hour passed, and when things slowed down, she found Tom at the counter, also watching her. He raised his cup in a silent toast. "You're amazing," he said with a smirk, and she couldn't help but feel a flutter in her chest. Could this be what a true companion felt like? As shifts wore on, the mood in the diner began to change. A group of regulars whispered as they watched her interact with Tom. Their eyes gleamed with gossip, their shared glances slicing through her newfound sense of hope. She shivered, a film of doubt settling over her like a morning fog. "Are you all right?" Tom asked, his brow furrowing with concern. I guess it's just a lot," she replied, trying to shake off the feeling that was creeping in. Her mother's text flashed back in her mind, reminding her to be careful of strangers. Tom took a step closer, his intensity crackling in the thick air. "Don't let them get to you. They don't know what you're capable of," he stated firmly. "You're stronger than you think." Her pulse quickened as she caught the fervor in his gaze. Those words were like a lifeline thrown into her choppy sea of uncertainty. "I want to believe that," she said softly. Intrigued, yet cautious, she felt like a diver on the brink of the deep end. "Then let us start with just being real with each other," he suggested, his expression full of encouragement. "Tell me something you dream about, something wild." The question sent a thrill through her. What wild dream would she dare to share? Before she could answer, the diner door swung open again with a familiar face stepping in, a face she had hoped to avoid, her ex-husband, Mark. His presence felt like a dark cloud looming, ready to rain on these vibrant possibilities. Sarah's heart raced, worry washing over her. What would he think? Would he even dare to approach her? "Tom," she whispered, a chill running down her spine. The warmth of their connection began to flicker. What now? The world around her seemed to fade away, and the din of plates and laughter turned muted. She felt trapped between the past she couldn't escape and the future she was just beginning to dream of. Would she let fear dictate her choices once more, or could she rise above it all? The moment was pivoting, and Sarah had to decide. Would she stand strong, or would she falter when it mattered most? Sarah's breath hitched as she saw Mark stroll in. The familiar figure stirred a storm of emotions within her. Anger, confusion, and a hint of fear all surged to the surface, making her chest tighten. She had imagined this moment too often, replaying conversations in her head, as if she might somehow change the past. Now, reality was here, and she had to face it. "Should I?" Tom's voice cut through her thoughts, looking entranced but concerned. She didn't need to answer. The worry mirrored in his eyes was enough. The entire diner felt like it had turned to watch, their murmurs carrying the weight of judgment with each passing moment. "Hey, Sarah. Long time, huh?" Mark's voice was smarmy, almost too casual, as if he were meeting an old friend. That tone made her bristle. "Mark," she replied stiffly, her heart racing. She could feel Tom slipping into the background, but she wasn't ready to let that happen. "Not today. Been hearing things about you," he continued, stepping closer. "Got yourself a new boyfriend?" He gestured toward Tom, a smirk pulling at his lips. The weight of his implication hung in the air, bringing with it the sharp sting of inadequacy. Sarah straightened her back, refusing to let Mark's words sink in. "I'm not here to discuss my life with you," she said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "Really? Because you seem to be enjoying the attention." Mark shrugged, unfazed. Tom shifted beside her, an imposing presence she hadn't anticipated. "They don't know her like I do," he interjected, his voice low yet powerful. It was a small comfort, but it fueled the fire in Sarah's chest. "Easy there," Mark waved him off, dismissing Tom with a haughty chuckle. "You think you know her? You don't know anything." Anger bubbled within Sarah, but for the first time, it felt like a spark instead of a raging inferno. You don't get to say that, she countered sharply. You didn't believe in me then. And you sure don't now. A moment of silence stretched between them. The atmosphere in the diner shifted like a tide pulling back, leaving them on uneven ground. Mark's usual bravado faltered, and a flicker of recognition crossed his face. Look, I just came in for a coffee, he muttered, face paling. Then, maybe you should stick to that and leave, she shot back, a mixture of satisfaction and nervousness coiling in her stomach. Tom glanced at her, his eyes filled with something admiration, respect. She couldn't place it, but it encouraged her to continue. I've moved on, Mark. My happiness doesn't depend on your approval. You've changed, he finally said, voice softer, almost regretful. Maybe that's the point, she whispered, taking a step back like she was pushing away the weight of the past. The tension in the diner cranked up a notch as patrons shifted in their seats, intrigued by this newfound exchange. Let us get out of here, Tom said, his gaze steady on her, cutting through the haze. How about we talk somewhere else? Sarah nodded, feeling empowered. It was exhilarating. This pushback wasn't just for him. It was for herself. She had come alive in this moment, reclaiming her power. Hand in hand, they headed toward the exit, the soft buzz of conversation trailing behind them as they stepped into the cool night air. Sarah took a deep breath, exhilaration mixing with the relief of leaving the chaos behind. I can't believe I did that, she murmured, glancing at Tom. He smiled, his expression lighting up the evening like fireflies. You were incredible. Letting go of fear is the first step. Maybe you're right. She couldn't help but grin, excitement bubbling within. But in the distance, she caught a glimpse of Mark watching her from the diner's window, a shadow of something unrecognized on his face. Had she done enough? Would this really be the change she needed? The night felt bright, but the questions remained, digging deeper. Sarah felt hope and vulnerability intertwined, knowing that this journey was far from complete. Could she trust this connection with Tom to lead her toward the happiness she craved, or was there still more she had to confront? The cool night air wrapped around Sarah like a cloak, refreshing and exhilarating. She walked beside Tom, their hands interlocked, but her mind swirled with uncertainty. Did I handle that right? She asked, more to herself than to him. Tom paused, looked down at her, and then shook his head. You took back your power. That's what matters. His voice was reassuring, but Sarah could still feel the weight of Mark's gaze burning into her as they walked toward the park nearby. The dim glow of street lamps illuminated their path. The chatter of nightlife surrounded them, blending with the rustling leaves. It felt like a moment suspended in time, and Sarah couldn't shake the thrill of having stood up for herself. But a nagging worry lingered. What was that look Mark had? She thought. Was it regret or something else? Pushing those thoughts aside, she focused on Tom. This feels different, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. You make me feel lighter. Tom smiled, but there was a seriousness in his eyes. That's how it should be. We all deserve someone who lifts us up. They reached a clearing where the park opened up, and Sarah took a deep breath, savoring the scent of earth and grass. She sat on a bench under a grand oak tree, its branches melting into the starry sky. Tom settled beside her, close enough to share warmth but allowing space for thoughts. I was so nervous back there, she admitted, looking down at her intertwined fingers. What if it all comes crashing down? What if he tries to find a way to control my life again? Tom's expression softened as he turned to her, his brows knitting together in concern. You're stronger than that. You've proven it. And you don't have to push me away just because he showed up. Sarah remained silent, impressed by his conviction. It made her heart flutter, but it also scared her. What's the worst that could happen if we let this go? He asked softly. Do you really want to look over your shoulder every time he's around, worrying about what he thinks or what he might say? Life is too short for that. The moonlight caught Tom's features, making his eyes shine with sincerity. It struck her how refreshing it felt to be with someone who genuinely cared. This connection, was it real? Or was she just dreaming of an escape from her past? Finally, she looked up, meeting his gaze. You're right, but it's terrifying to trust again. Trust is built, not given. He reached over and took her other hand, squeezing it gently. Let us make this journey together, step by step. No matter what happens. Her heart swelled, And for the first time that night, she felt a flicker of hope igniting. Maybe this was the change she had been searching for, the willingness to embrace the unknown without fear. Yet, just as a hint of contentment washed over her, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the diner. Sarah's stomach dropped. She turned to see Mark storming out, his face flushed with anger and disbelief. "Sarah," he shouted, voice cutting through the peaceful night. "I need to talk to you. Now." Sarah's heartbeat quickened, adrenaline surging through her veins. The confidence she had just built was colliding with the dread of the past. "What do I do?" she murmured, trembling slightly. Tom's grip tightened on her hand. "We deal with this together." But as Mark drew closer, Sarah felt the stakes rise higher than ever. Would she face this moment, or would she retreat back into the shadows? In that instant, everything hung in the balance. What if the true test of her newfound strength was yet to come? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as Mark approached, his figure becoming clearer in the dimly lit park. Anger radiated from him, a dark cloud threatening to engulf her newfound sense of strength. She felt like a deer in headlights, frozen in the moment. "Sarah." He was closer now, his voice sharper. "You can't just walk away from me like that. We need to talk." Tom stood protectively beside her, his presence grounding yet electrifying. "You've said enough, Mark. She doesn't owe you anything." Mark scoffed dismissively, his face contorting, frustration evident. "You think you can just swoop in and take her from me? I know who I am, what I've been." The words stung, a slap in the face of her confidence. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in. Had she really made the right choice? "Mark, it's not about you anymore," Sarah managed to say, her voice steadier than her heart felt. She glanced at Tom, who met her gaze with unwavering support, his eyes saying, "You got this." "What do you mean it's not about me?" Mark snapped back. "I always had your back. You think this guy," he gestured toward Tom, "is better than me? You were mine. I'm my own now," Sarah replied, feeling a newfound fire in her chest. "And I deserve better." His expression shifted, confusion mixed with desperation. "Better? You really think he'll stick around when he figures you out?" Sarah took a step forward, her heart pounding. "You don't get to define my worth, Mark. Not anymore." For a brief moment, silence descended. The world around them faded as Sarah focused on the resolve building inside her. She was drawing lines in the sand, refusing to let him cross them again. Tom squeezed her hand, an anchor in the tide of chaos. "Don't let him control the conversation, Sarah. You have the right to claim your voice." Mark's face turned a shade paler, and for an instant, vulnerability broke through his bravado. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by anger once more. "You'll regret this. You didn't think this would end well, did you?" "I'll face whatever comes next," she stated firmly. "I'm ready to live my life." With a sudden defiance, she started to turn away, but Mark stepped forward, blocking her path. "You're making a huge mistake." Tom stepped in front of her protectively, his presence a quiet promise. "And you're making a huge miscalculation if you think she's going to stand down. You can shout all you want, but the truth is, Sarah has found her strength. It's time you understand that." The park felt charged, every breath heavy with tension. Mark glared at Tom, the two men sizing each other up, but Sarah's focus remained on herself. She was growing up in this moment. She was redefining her life. "Let us go," Tom urged softly, his hand beckoning her to leave the confrontation behind. But as they began to walk away, Mark called after them. "You think this is over? You have no idea what I'm capable of." Sarah halted, her heart racing. "No, Mark. You have no idea what I'm capable of." Choosing to walk forward was a choice filled with uncertainty, a step into the unknown. The night was still alive with sounds of laughter and distant music, but her mind swirled with questions. What would happen next? How would she maintain her strength? And could this new connection with Tom survive the storm? As they exited the park, Sarah sensed the night was just beginning, and with it came the potential for a fresh start. Would she embrace the risks ahead, or would the shadows of her past return to haunt her? The path lay open, yet fraught with danger. Would she take that leap of faith, or would she allow fear to chain her once more? As they stepped out of the park, Sarah felt the cool night air wrap around her like a soft blanket, soothing the heated confrontation she had just endured. Tom walked closely beside her, their hands still intertwined, an unspoken agreement passing between them. Each step felt lighter, Yet the shadows of Mark's words lingered in her mind like an unwelcome echo. "What a jerk," Tom murmured, breaking the silence. "You handled that way better than I expected." Sarah let out a small laugh, surprising herself. "I wasn't sure I could. Believe it. You're stronger than you know," he replied, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. The laughter and music from nearby eateries grew louder as they approached a small bistro adorned with twinkling fairy lights. A quick glance at the menu posted outside confirmed her craving for comfort food. "How about we grab some dinner? You like Italian, right?" Tom asked, attempting to lighten the mood. Sarah nodded, her stomach rumbling at the thought of warm bread and marinara sauce. "I definitely do. Let us go in." Inside, the ambience was cozy, with the warm glow of candles casting playful shadows on the walls. They were seated at a small table near the window, a perfect spot to people watch. As they waited for their food, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She turned her head slightly, only to catch a stranger's gaze from across the room. He smiled, a friendly yet mysterious grin that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. "Who's that?" Tom asked, noticing her interest. I don't know," she replied, a hint of warmth creeping into her cheeks. "Just some guy." Tom chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Looks like he's certainly got your attention." As they shared a moment of easy conversation, Sarah attempted to brush off the stranger's stare, but she couldn't resist sneaking glances in his direction. There was something about him, the way he seemed completely at ease, almost as if he felt a connection too. When the waiter brought their food, Sarah was grateful for the distraction. They dug in, discussing everything from their favorite movies to their worst travel experiences. Laughter spilled easily between them, the connection growing, providing warmth against the chill of the night. But as Sarah took a sip of her drink, she caught the stranger staring at her again. This time, he stood up and walked over, confidence radiating from him. "Hi there," he said, an easy smile on his face. "I couldn't help but notice how radiant you look tonight." Taken aback, Sarah blinked. Thank you? Mind if I join you?" he asked, looking at both her and Tom. Tom raised an eyebrow, but nodded, clearly amused by the sudden turn of events. "Sure, the more the merrier." "Great." The stranger slid into the booth, turning his attention fully to Sarah. "I'm Alex." "Sarah," she replied, a pulse of excitement coursing through her. Just as they began to chat, Tom excused himself to the restroom, giving Alex space to engage her with curious questions. Sarah felt her cheeks warm, her nervousness palpable, yet exhilarating all at once. "What brings you out on a night like this?" Alex asked, leaning in closer. Before she could respond, a shadow stretched over their table. Mark had found them. His expression was a mix of anger and surprise, his eyes narrowing on Alex. "What the hell is going on here?" The confrontation felt electric, charged with tension as Sarah's heart raced. "What do you want, Mark?" She shot back, her newfound resolve flaring up once again. Mark's gaze flicked to Alex, a sneer curling his lips. "Clearly, you're just making a whole new set of mistakes." But Sarah wasn't backing down now, not when Alex seemed genuinely interested, and not when she had come so far. "This is none of your business. I've moved on, and you should too." The room faltered in that moment, the surrounding chatter fading into the background. It was now or never. She had to show Mark that he no longer held power over her life. The night held a promise of new beginnings. But would she find the courage to fully embrace it? As Mark stood there fuming, looming as yet another embodiment of her past, Sarah faced the choice that lay ahead. Would she let the past dictate her future, or would she reclaim her narrative now? Sarah's heart raced as she stood her ground against Mark. His presence felt suffocating, heavy with the baggage of their past. "Seriously, Mark? You think you can just show up and intimidate me?" She felt fierce and alive, a wildfire igniting within her. Alex, sensing the tension, looked between them. "Is everything okay?" Mark's eyes were blazing. "Oh, everything's just perfect. I sent it, Sarah. You've already moved on to your little rebound." The word hit like a punch. Sarah clenched her jaw. "This is not a rebound. This is me taking charge." A hush settled over the nearby tables as people began to take notice. She could feel their eyes, and for a moment, the thought of being on display nearly sent her heart sinking. But then, one look at Alex's calm, steady presence brought her back to the moment. Mark scoffed, crossing his arms. "You really think he's into you? You don't have a clue, do you?" Anger surged. This wasn't just about her anymore. And you don't know anything about me anymore, Mark. You lost that right when you walked away. So, why don't you do us both a favor and leave? The silence that followed was deafening, everyone around them witnessing this unraveling drama. Sarah felt raw and exposed, yet exhilaration flickered in her chest. She had reclaimed her voice. Tom returned just in time to catch the last part of the exchange. He raised an eyebrow, assessing the situation. Everything all right? Jerry, clearly unperturbed by Tom's arrival, shot him a disdainful glare. Just a friendly chat. Alex's posture shifted slightly, his expression unreadable but intense. Maybe it's time for Mark to go, don't you think? He asked, a hint of defiance in his tone. Mark stepped closer, but Sarah held her ground. This is my choice, Mark. Not yours. You don't get to control this moment. She turned to Alex, searching for support. I'm sorry, this isn't how I wanted the evening to go. Don't apologize, Sarah. You're amazing, he said softly, his eyes warming her from the inside out. Something in his gaze made her feel stronger. She tilted her chin up, facing Mark defiantly. I'm done letting you dictate my life. I deserve more. With a frustrated grunt, Mark stepped back, shaking his head as if to dismiss her entirely. You'll regret this. Maybe, but it will be my regret, she shot back. As Mark stormed off, the air felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Tom let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Wow, Sarah, that was intense. I didn't think I had it in me, she replied, still flushing with exhilaration. Alex leaned closer, a smile playing on his lips. You were incredible. I respect a woman who stands her ground. Her cheeks flushed, caught between embarrassment and pride. They exchanged a lingering glance. A connection was solidifying, alive with possibility. Should we continue with dinner? Tom asked, breaking the spell. Yes, I'd love that, Sarah answered, eager to steer the night back to the fun they had shared earlier. As they settled back into comfortable conversation, Sarah felt the warmth of Alex's gaze lingering on her, a reassuring comfort. Moments passed, filled with laughter and engaging dialogue, where she began to feel that maybe this night could turn into something extraordinary. Yet, just as they were settling back into a rhythm, Sarah suddenly felt a pause in the air. Unbeknownst to her, Tom had shifted uncomfortably in his seat. So, Sarah, what would you do if a guy asked you to be his girlfriend right now? Her breath hitched, and before she could respond, a glow of uncertainty crossed Alex's face. What did that mean for Alex's interest? The thrill of the evening suddenly felt precarious, as the future loomed uncertainly ahead. The unexpected question hung in the air, heavy enough to press against Sarah's chest. She looked at Tom, his eyes wide with curious anticipation, then flicked a glance at Alex. His expression was a mix of hope and concern, causing a flutter of nerves in her stomach. What kind of question is that? She managed to say, her voice teasing but laced with genuine curiosity. Tom shrugged, a playful smirk tugging at his lips. Just wanted to see how you'd react. You know, just in case someone was brave enough to put their cards on the table. Nobody's putting cards on the table, Tom. Not tonight, Sarah shot back, but the heat in her cheeks betrayed her. Alex leaned closer, his brow furrowing slightly. You know, it's a valid question. Really? She turned to him, intrigued. What if I said I would? Would you even be interested? The audacity surprised her, the thrill of the moment swallowing her doubt. Alex's smile widened, but it was tinged with hesitation. I think I would be, he said carefully, his gaze steady on hers. But I don't want to rush anything. I mean, there's a lot going on. Like Mark, Tom chimed in, ever the mediator. You know, you have to deal with that first. The mere mention of Mark sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. After confronting him, she thought she'd put that chapter behind her. But there it was, looming like a ghost at the edge of her thoughts. Yeah, but you just saw me stand up to him, she said, trying to regain the confidence that had filled her moments ago. I can handle my past. Alex's eyes sparked with admiration, though the uncertainty still lingered. You can, but that doesn't mean I want to pressure you into anything. This should feel right, you know? For some reason, those words wrapped around her heart like a warm embrace. Maybe it wasn't about rushing into labels or definitions. Maybe it was about taking each moment as it came. Right, she murmured, contemplating. That's what I'm trying to say. Tom laughed. Being vulnerable is part of it. No one's asking for a contract. Just live a little. A breath of laughter escaped her. "You're right. I'll live a little." But beneath the laughter, a pang of uncertainty lingered. Could she really open herself up to something new? Just then, the lights dimmed slightly as the restaurant played a soft love song, a sweet serenade that seemed to wrap around them. It was almost magical, the way it transformed the atmosphere. Alex, perhaps feeling the vibe, reached for her hand. The warmth of his fingers intertwined with hers sent a jolt of clarity shooting through her. "Whatever happens, I want you to know I'm here," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the music. At that moment, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could be the beginning of something beautiful. The warmth and connection in that touch was electric. But just as she considered the possibilities, a familiar and unwelcome presence emerged from the shadows. Mark had returned, his expression unreadable. "Looks like the party isn't over yet," he sneered, casting a doubtful glance at Alex. Heart racing anew, Sarah felt a rush of anger and defiance erupt within. She had to protect this moment, this connection. "Why are you still here, Mark?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the quickening pace of her heart. And in that instant, she knew the stakes had risen. This wasn't just about her heart anymore. It was about her future. What would she do to keep that flickering flame of hope alive in the face of her past? As Mark stepped closer, something in his gaze hinted at the chaos he was ready to unleash. Would Sarah find the strength to put an end to this once and for all? Or would her moment of clarity be snuffed out just as quickly as it had ignited? Mark's presence thickened the air around them, each breath feeling heavier. The subtle tension acted like a live wire, crackling with potential. Sarah couldn't afford to show fear. Not now, not when she was starting to feel something real with Alex. "Why are you still here, Mark?" she repeated, firmer this time. There was bitterness in her throat, but also a steely resolve. She felt Alex shift beside her, his grip on her hand tightening just enough to send a soothing warmth through her. Mark chuckled, the sound dripping with disdain. "I could ask you the same thing, Sarah. Thought you'd be smarter than to give him a second chance," he said, his gaze flicking contemptuously towards Alex. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. She could sense the danger looming in Mark's words, a storm ready to break. But she refused to be intimidated. "I'm not the one who needs saving here," she shot back, surprising herself with the confidence that poured out. Tom, ever the buffer, stepped between them. "Come on, Mark, don't ruin the night. Let us not turn this into a scene." He flashed a nervous smile at Sarah, trying to lighten the mood, but the shadows of the past flickered ominously at the edges of their little gathering. Mark stepped forward, invading her space. "You think you're strong now? This isn't over, Sarah. You can't just break free and pretend it didn't happen." He let those words dangle in the air like a taunt. Every second felt like an eternity. The restaurant buzzed around them, laughter and soft conversations a distant hum. Sarah's mind raced, searching for the right words, the right moment to end this once and for all. "I'm not pretending anything," she said, calming the tremor in her voice. "I'm choosing to move on. And if you can't respect that, you'll find yourself completely out of my life." Mark's face darkened, and for a split second, the camaraderie she felt with Alex seemed fragile, like spun glass. But then she glanced at him. His expression strong, unwavering gave her the boost she needed. "Look, Sarah," Alex said quietly, shifting to stand by her side. "This isn't worth it. We can leave." She met his gaze, feeling an unexpected surge of gratitude. He was here, ready to stand by her against the tide. "No," she breathed, shaking her head. "No way am I running away anymore." Mark's demeanor changed again, his bravado wilting in the face of her resolve. He stepped back, looking bewildered, caught off guard by her newfound strength. "Think this makes you special?" he sneered, though his tone lacked its earlier bite. Sarah knew from that moment she had reclaimed some power. "It doesn't have to be about me," she recognized aloud, glancing back at Tom and Alex. "It's about moving forward. Together." A sense of lightness began to spread through her, like sunshine breaking through clouds. Perhaps this was the moment she had needed all along, the one she could use to cement her future without the shadow of Mark following her. Tom nodded, breaking the tension by calling out a new order to the waiter, a playful attempt to rally them back. "Who's ready for dessert?" He grinned, veering the atmosphere back towards something more comfortable. But as Sarah sat back down, her heart still raced. "Mark, defeated for now, slouched back against the wall, his presence a lingering reminder of the past. "So what's next?" Alex asked her softly, an invitation to step further into the potential they both felt flickering between them. Sarah smiled, shaking off whatever lingering doubts she had. "I guess that depends on what we want it to be," she replied, her voice steady and sure. But deep down, she wondered, could those storms really be fully behind her, or would Mark come roaring back when she least expected it? As the warm laughter resumed around her, she felt the whirlwind of uncertainty swirl back in her heart. What if this moment of clarity turned out to be merely the calm before the inevitable storm? Would she have the strength to face him again? The bustling bistro felt like home, wrapped in the warm glow of flickering candles and soft laughter. Yet Sarah knew that the aftermath of Mark's presence would linger like a shadow. She sat at the table, Tom and Alex beside her, each one entirely different, but both emblematic of the paths ahead. She took a deep breath, the salty scent of marinara filling the air, trying to center herself amid the chaos of her thoughts. "I'm just grateful you both stood by me," Sarah finally said, looking at Tom, then Alex. "Tonight was transformative. More like a battle royale," Tom interjected with his typical lightness, trying to lift the tension that still hung in the air. He smiled, giving her that reassuring vibe she just needed, like a safety net. Alex leaned in closer, his eyes soft and genuine. "You've got a fire in you, Sarah. It's incredible to see." That warmth beneath Alex's gaze lit something deep within her. It felt empowering to know that she could face a storm and come out standing, stronger than before. I never knew I could confront him like that," she admitted, feeling the adrenaline still pulsing through her veins. "You didn't back down when it mattered," Tom added, his voice steady, proud even. There was an unspoken bond among the three of them, brotherhood or camaraderie forged in the fires of truth and resilience. Working her courage, Sarah chose to embrace this moment. "Whatever comes next with Mark, I'll face it, and I want to face it together." "Together," Alex echoed, holding her gaze with intention. The sincerity in his tone made her heart flutter, a pulse of possibility echoing in the space between. Just then, the waiter approached with a plate of warm tiramisu, the cocoa dusted like freshly fallen snow, sweet and inviting. The dessert felt symbolic, a fresh start on a plate, a reminder of the sweetness life could hold if she embraced it fully. They shared laughter over dessert. Sarah couldn't help but reflect on how far she'd come. Each story they exchanged filled her spirit, stitching up the remnants of her lonely past. It was as if she could feel the weight lifting from her shoulders, each laughter like a brick removed from the wall that had encased her heart. "But, really," Tom said, breaking the joyful chatter with newfound seriousness, "have you thought about what if Mark comes back? This isn't over yet, Sarah." The question hung heavy in the air. She had thought about it, faced that fear head-on amid the hope of this night. "I know it's possible," she finally replied, determination flooding her words. "But I refuse to let him define me anymore. I'm ready to take charge of my own life, wherever that leads." Tom nodded, supportive. "You've got this. Just remember, you're not alone anymore." "I believe in you," Alex added, his smile warm but with a silent understanding of the unfolding battle that was part of her journey. The kindness in his gaze wrapped around her, a protective layer she had longed for. As the night wore on, Sarah found herself lost in conversations and laughter, feeling new sparks of joy. Yet, the thought of Mark still loomed, a ghost of a moment she knew she'd have to confront. But in the flicker of that diner light, she understood that she was willing to fight not just for her own happiness but for those she loved. With every shared bite of the dessert and every exchanged smile, she made a silent vow. She wouldn't let fear dictate her choices any longer. No more shying away from confrontation or running from vulnerability. As they wrapped up dinner, she felt a surge of excitement mixed with nerves. "Let us take a walk," she suggested, her eyes sparkling with the prospect of a new beginning. "Absolutely," Tom said, rising to lead the way while Alex followed closely behind, both men treading a new path beside her, one full of unfamiliar happiness. Under the moonlit sky, Sarah felt a rhythm settle into the universe. The tension of the past may still linger, but she was ready to face each moment. If Mark stepped back into her life, she would deal with it when the time came. She was excited about the journey ahead, whatever lay in wait. Whatever comes, I'm ready, she whispered to herself, smiling at the sky above. She was no longer alone. With new friendships blooming, a heart ready to open, and the courage to embrace life, she was prepared to write the next chapter of her story. And maybe, just maybe, this chapter would be even bigger than she could imagine. Now, if you felt this story touched your heart, you need to subscribe to the channel right away. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to help the algorithm spread this story far and wide. And don't forget to comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. True fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions.